Hello, Geneva, and welcome to Officially Speaking. I'm your host, Kevin Starr. Each month, we sit down with one of our local elected officials to get the latest with the City Council. Today, we're joined by First Ward Alderman Tara Burghart. Tara, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You've almost been on the council for a year. How would you summarize your first 11 months?
It's been very busy. A lot of longtime Geneva residents have said to me, oh boy, you picked a real great time to be elected to the City Council. We've really examined a lot of issues that have brought out a lot of passionate people on either side of the issue, and I've really enjoyed it. I've gotten a lot of guidance from Alderman Mike Bruno, my counterpart in the First Ward, along with really the entire City Council. All of them have been so welcoming and really encouraging of me, and always able to talk me through an issue. Also, city staff, I can't speak highly enough about how quickly they get back to me or are available by telephone when I have a question. It's been a real learning curve for me, and I have a background as a reporter, so I feel like that has helped me, and that I'm usually not scared off by any topic. I kind of just dive in and start to try to learn my way through it, but having all these resources available, along with longtime Geneva residents, it's amazing. A lot of the people we have at the council meetings every Monday night have lived in this city for 40, 50, 60 years, and it's been great for me to meet them and to hear the history of Geneva, hear some stumbling blocks maybe we've hit over the years, and to know that they're always available too, to give me that kind of institutional knowledge that I don't have, since I've only lived here about 9 years.
Well, let's jump into some of those issues that you've so gladly dedicated your time toward. The first one being the Historic Preservation Ordinance. I know that was in a long and ongoing discussion, a lot of debate and decisions that had to be made. Were you happy with ultimately how that process turned out? Yes,
that was already underway when I took office. It had already been through the Historic Preservation Commission. It obviously, the decision to revise that ordinance has a long history, but we kind of jumped into it at the City Council level pretty soon after I took office. So that was the first one I had to really dive into. And I remember, I think one week I had 15 hours of meetings all on historic preservation. I came into office really open-minded about, I knew I like old houses just personally, but I gotta say I didn't know a lot about the history of Geneva's historic districts or the process for individual landmarking of homes. And I came out of it thinking that historic preservation is a huge part of what makes Geneva special, and is something that really does need to be safeguarded. Of course, we want to balance property rights, personal property rights, but we also have to balance that with the good of the community, of what I think our historic preservation, historic districts have accomplished for the city. In terms of the process, I think we might have had a dozen meetings at the City Council level, and I thought it was great that really everybody who wanted to speak had their chance to have a say. I know in other cities that sometimes time limits are put on people that want to comment, or mayors can really limit if something has been said before, they really kind of cut people off. And I think during that historic preservation process, we really heard from a wide variety of people. We heard from some people many, many times. We really got into the details and the weeds on some of these. So I felt really good that wherever you stood on that, which is an important issue that people feel really passionately about, that everybody had their say. So I felt that was great. In terms of the ordinance itself, I thought it was very well researched, very well thought out, the ordinance as it came to us, but there were some certain hot button topics, and we took really close looks at those. A lot of aldermen had specific ideas for how to accomplish some of the things differently, and we looked at them. I felt like we kind of came full circle on some of them. On a lot of them, we did look into other options, and we kind of came back to the original being probably our best bet. Going forward, I think historic preservation's always going to be a topic of conversation in Geneva. Like I said, it's important, but it also is a very personal issue if you live in one of those historic homes. So I don't think this is the last we'll be talking about historic preservation before the City Council. But yes, I did. I was very happy with how the process turned out. And, now we'll see going forward, the one probably hottest button issue would have been the individual landmarking of historic homes without the owner consent. That was something, a lot of property owners are very concerned about, that their home could be landmarked without their consent. Ultimately, the City Council felt like we really need to have kind of that last arrow in our quiver if a home is threatened, and so it would take a super majority of the City Council to landmark without a owner consent. I think that's a really high bar, and I'll be intrigued to see if we even ever see that happen while I'm on the council. I think it's important that we have that tool, but I think it's going to be really rarely used that anybody's going to try to landmark a home, an individual home, without the owner's consent. So.
Another issue that has certainly drawn a great deal of debate at the Plan Commission level and not yet reached the City Council is the proposed development at 7th and State. From a distance, since this issue has not come before the City Council, what has been your take on this issue so far?
Yeah, this is one I do have a history with. I live in that general neighborhood, so I have followed the Citron property. The old factory was there when I bought my home, and then followed it very closely when the library was considering buying that parcel of land. Obviously, that fell through. So I have carefully followed what Marquette's proposed. I do share a lot of the same concerns that, a lot of the residents in the area have expressed about the height and the scale and the mass of the building. I also see the benefits to the city of a structure like that in terms of offering some more diverse housing choices, the environmental remediation that Marquette would perform, and the extension of 7th Street to Peyton. So what I've been doing is just educating myself on, this is a major project for our city, so there are a lot of zoning issues that I'm trying to get up to speed on, a lot of development issues. So I've really been focused on that. I've attended all 3 of the Plan Commission meetings since December. Been talking to residents, talking to business owners, talking to even people in other communities that might have apartment complexes like this a little bit more common. And I think I can speak for my fellow aldermen. I think all of them are doing the same, listening, educating themselves. I know at the Plan Commission meeting in February, we had 5 of us were there, at least 5 aldermen. What's also been really amazing is the amount of people in Geneva that have turned out interested in this topic. I counted heads at that last Plan Commission meeting, and there were 225 Geneva residents there, and that's 1% of our population. So it's really heartening to me, wherever you kind of fall on that issue, is this is what makes Geneva great, is that many people come out on a cold Thursday night and, to listen to a 3-hour Plan Commission meeting hearing. Mm-hmm. So I'll be interested to see. I think it's getting close to getting to the City Council level, and residents will have a chance to have their say when it gets to that level. Aldermen will have a chance to have their say. But so far, it's been a really interesting process.
In the coming months, there's going to be a changing of the guard in city leadership. We have the retirements of our city administrator, Mary McKittrick, our police chief, Steve Mexon, and our fire chief, Steve Olson. Is that something that brings a concern to you from a city council perspective?
It's always a concern when you lose that kind of experience in leadership, losing 3 such qualified, devoted city employees in a short time. I think it's going to be a big change for the city, but I think it's also understandable. I think they want to spend more time with their families. They've all worked long and hard for the city of Geneva, and change can also be good. So I'm sure we'll have some growing pains. I think we're also going to see, some exciting maybe opportunities out of new leadership, and I feel like we have a good succession plan in place, and we have instituted that. We have 3 candidates that were ready in the wings that, Chief Olson, Chief Mexon, and Mary felt very confident in, that they've been training and letting them kind of shadow them, mentoring. And so I feel confident in the candidates who are going to be taking their place, that they have that institutional knowledge about Geneva. They have the experience, obviously all very intelligent, devoted employees. And I'm excited to see what they bring to the table.
Dipping back to the passionate residents, we had the City Council discuss the proposed Dunkin Donuts on Caneville Road, and that drew a great amount of discussion and a resident opinion. How are you with the way that process ultimately shaped up?
Well, I learned that Geneva residents love Dunkin Donuts, coffee, and donuts. I think everybody was clear on that. It was not opposition to Dunkin Donuts. But that was another interesting one because here you had this building, this kind of strip mall that dates from, I think, the 70s or 80s. And you have a new owner of the property who's trying to maximize their investment in that property, and they've done a great job. There's, that strip mall didn't have a lot going for a while, and now there's new businesses in it, and a Thai place everyone loves, and a fitness place I hear a lot about. And so I think in a way that vote was closer than it looked. I think all of us really, I know I spent a lot of time on it because I understood the benefit of having a Dunkin' Donuts in that structure, what it would have done for those other businesses. Ultimately, there was a lot of talk about traffic. I will say one of my personal concerns about it was the location of the order box was going to be within 100 feet of the property line of at least 3 residential properties. And I think those kind of zoning laws are in place for a reason. Part of the reason I ran for the city council was there was no one on the council that had young children at home, and I felt like Geneva being a place that has a lot of young families, it would be good to have a voice for young families on the council. And, with a child that's an elementary age child that should be in bed about 8 o'clock every night, Dunkin' Donuts suggested that they could close that their drive-through from like 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. And that was a great gesture on their part, and they were obviously really trying to make it work. But I put myself in the shoes of those homeowners that would be less than 100 feet from that kind of squawk box. And I thought, gosh, if my kid was in bed at 8 o'clock and we were dealing with people ordering their donuts and their coffee at 9, 10, up till 11 p.m., again, maybe starting at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, I felt like those property owners, they bought that property assuming that, there was not supposed to be a drive-through, that was part of the PUD, that there was not supposed to be a drive-through of that magnitude. So that was really what swayed my vote, was the high volume of the noise coming from the order box at the Dunkin' Donuts. That said, another great process. So many people turned out. Everybody had their say. We might end up working with the Dunkin' Donuts franchisee in the future. Hopefully they left feeling that they got to have their say too, and kind of democracy in action.
The city recently received an update in late March about the third main rail line for Union Pacific. Can you share with our audience a little bit about what that project will entail?
Yeah, that was a really interesting update. I was so glad we got to hear it. We heard both from a Metro representative and a Union Pacific representative, and I urge anyone who really wants to know the details about the timeline and the impact on the city should go back and watch that March 21st meeting on YouTube. It was early in the meeting. I used to be a daily commuter into the city on Metro. My husband still is, so I certainly follow this news with interest. I had always heard of the third rail project, and I just thought of it as the third rail project. I learned at that meeting that really this has been a massive undertaking by Union Pacific to make the entire Union Pacific West Line safer for pedestrians, safer for train traffic, safer for cars. And so there's been a lot of different stages of that project over the years. We're now coming up on adding the third rail, and that would be in Geneva, a 6-mile stretch from Crest Road to Peck Road. There's also a stretch in the River Forest area, and that's going to get started this year. The Geneva portion won't get started till 2017. It's going to be a pretty massive undertaking. There's definitely going to be some pain points for Geneva residents when that goes into place, and I know we'll be sharing a lot more information about that. A really fascinating fact was the Union Pacific West Line is a very busy line. Metro and UP shared with us that that line serves about 60 Metro trains a day. It also serves about 52 freight trains a day. For comparison's sake, UP's North Line and Northwest Line also have about 60 Metro trains, but only 2 or 5 or 7 freight trains. So anybody that regularly travels on Metro knows that the freight trains on UP West are an issue. So that third rail is really going to give UP and Metro a lot more flexibility in trying to keep those trains efficient, on time, out of each other's way. Again, as a commuter, though, I got to say I was disappointed because I had always hoped that adding the third rail would mean that we'd get more express service into Chicago from Geneva. You know, it takes at least an hour usually. I think the least you can get into Chicago on the Metro from Geneva is there's one train that's 50 minutes. But in general, you're talking hour and 10 minutes. Unfortunately, the Metro representative said, you know, additional service, which would be express trains, are a ways down the road. He mentioned 3, 5, maybe 10 years. That's a disappointment to me, but this third rail has to be in place before Metro and UP would even discuss additional service. So it's something we have to go through, and ultimately it's going to be good for Metro commuters because we're going to see more on-time trains and less delays and more efficient travel on those trains.
The City Council will hopefully be approving a new fiscal year budget in April. From a budget perspective, what are you looking at when you tackle this subject?
The budget process is certainly a challenging one and a super important part of our job on the City Council. We've already had several hearings about it. We'll continue to have more meetings. You know, residents who want to learn more, the draft budget will be on the website. It's also available to be picked up at the library. I urge people to give me a call if there's a certain area they want to talk about. Going forward, I think the city will continue to have challenges because we have unfunded mandates from the state. Obviously, the state's fiscal woes impact suburbs like Geneva. We're going to have to continue to look at both the revenue and the expense side, and I'm looking forward to being more involved in that process in the coming year.
As we end our interview here, we talked about Geneva being a great place to live, and we actually were just ranked one of the best places to live by West Suburban Magazine. You've obviously, with your blog, have been around many of the western suburbs. In your opinion, what makes Geneva a real special place to live?
Yes, I do have a website for young families in the western suburbs, so I do get out a lot. I'm not a homebody by nature. I'm happier when I'm on the go, so I do feel like I've gotten to know Geneva and the western suburbs pretty well in my less than 10 years out here. I think Geneva, in one way, is blessed by just a sense of place. Being on the Fox River, being within commuting distance of Chicago, but yet you drive 10 miles to the west and you're out in farm country. You have that rural feeling that a lot of us love. I grew up in central Illinois, so driving just 10 miles to the west of my home starts to remind me of where I grew up. And so I think we have that benefit of being able to go to the farms and buy your farm fresh eggs and see the lambs, but yet hop on the Metro and be at the Art Institute for the weekend. So I think Geneva does benefit from that sense of place, but obviously so much work has been done over the decades to make Geneva special, to preserve our historic downtown, to preserve our unique locally owned shops. That's why we get all the travelers we do and the people that come out for the day to shop here and to our festivals is, we offer something on 3rd Street and State Street downtown that you can't find at Oak Brook or Woodfield. And I hope going forward, I really want to make it a mission to remind younger residents of the town, newcomers, that if we want to keep Geneva great, we have to invest back in the community, either through volunteer work or, I had a friend's birthday party a couple of weekends ago, and I had to get a present, and I thought immediately, I'm going to go to 3rd Street. There's certainly something I can find there, and sometimes it's just retraining your brain to think, how can I support local shops, local restaurants, anytime I can. So I think we have to we always have to be on guard to try to support that's made Geneva special and not take it for granted, because a lot of work has gone into it by city staff, elected officials, volunteers, residents, business owners over the years. So, I think Geneva's challenge moving forward is how do we keep it special, unique, but move forward in the future, take the best of what the future offers and honor the past. And that's what I think makes Geneva so special.
That is all the time we have for Officially Speaking today. I'd like to thank Tara Burghart for her time and insight into the City Council.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this process. I also want to urge residents of Geneva and business owners, property owners in the First Ward, but all over the city, to reach out to me if they have any concerns or issues they want to talk to me about. My email is on the city website along with my phone number. One of my joys that I get out of this job is meeting new people, hearing new ideas and new perspectives, and I bring those back to the city council every Monday night, and I try to share them, and they certainly influence my vote. So I do urge people to keep in touch with me.
Well, that's great. We'd also like to thank you for watching. We'll be tuning in next month to get the official word from your elected officials.